It's here. It's finally here. It's that thing that we wait for. It's fall. Yes, I love fall. It's that time of year when the trees give us all the beautiful colors and, no more sweaty 90-degree days. Ugh. And we get to start thinking about Thanksgiving and Christmas. But in the middle of all this happy, you might have one foot in the gap trap.
Wait, what's a gap trap? I mean, we all know about gaps in mountains, gaps in history, gaps in communication, even the dreaded gaps in clothing. But I'm talking about academic gaps. And are they even a thing you need to worry about in your homeschool? Hey, I get a lot of email from homeschool curriculum companies, which I use to help the families I'm doing homeschool consulting for, because then I know where the best deals are. And a couple of days ago, I got one that really grabbed my attention with just the title, which was Find and Fill Academic Gaps. Now, my immediate thought was, hold on here. Every education has gaps. I went to like 12 years of school, right? And plus college. And I'm pretty sure I still don't know everything. Matter of fact, I'm pretty sure I've forgotten more than I remember. Does this mean my education was a fail? Am I an incomplete person because of this? Well, the answer here is no. And the ad I saw, to be fair, wasn't trying to say anything like that, but it got me thinking. The ad was about all those supplementary workbooks and videos that were on sale, with the idea that your child might need more practice in a given area. Hey, nothing wrong with that. Or is there? Today, we're going to dive into this idea that our homeschool has to cover all the bases, and that academic gaps are always looming and should be shaping what our kids need to know. Yeah, today I'm going to help you get out of the academic gap trap and settle into panic-free homeschooling. So I'd like to start with what education is and what it isn't, because this has a lot to do with the idea of gaps in your homeschool. Now, my views on education have been largely shaped by a few really good books. My top go-to is this guy. This is Teaching the Trivium by Harvey and Lori Bluedorn. Next up would be this little gem, The Wisdom of Fenelon, which was actually written in 1687. And of course, there is Charlotte Mason's original homeschooling series. And I also have to put in a good word for a little essay written by Dorothy Sayers in 1947 called The Lost Tools of Learning. So what I've learned is this. Education is a process, not an outcome. So I'm going to give you an example here. Suppose I want to feed myself. If the outcome of preparing a meal is my end goal, I'll memorize a single recipe. I will make it perfectly every time. I will be the one-hit kitchen wonder. Yeah. But if learning to cook is my goal, then I'll go through the process of learning all about ingredients and cooking techniques and the tools of the trade, and then I'll be able to cook anything I'd like. So let's apply this to education. We're going to start here. You might be familiar with the classical method of homeschooling, which divides education into roughly 3 stages. The Bluedorns call these stages knowledge, understanding, and wisdom. So in the knowledge level, we are instructed in the facts, okay? In the understanding level, we are guided to see the connections between the facts. And in the final wisdom level, we are challenged to apply the facts in a practical way. So this makes the process of education more like learning how to learn rather than an outcome of learning certain things. So what does all of this have to do with gaps? If you're teaching your kids how to learn while teaching them what they need to know, does it really matter if they miss a page or a chapter or even skip an entire book about something? Well, obviously not, because your kids will know how to find anything they need to know. And this brings us to a major reason to homeschool. So institutional schools, even the really good ones, have to rely on outcome-based education because they have no other way of assessing student progress. Tests and quizzes are designed to show a classroom teacher what the kids do not know, so that then he or she can provide more work to fill the gaps, and the end result produce better test results. In your homeschool, however, you can focus on the process of learning because you are personally, individually taking your kids through the material. That means you can focus on things like, do they know enough to connect the dots and apply this in a practical way? Instead of, can they regurgitate this on the test? Now I'm going to make a disclaimer here and say this is my super simplified version of what I've learned, but I think you can see the relevance here. Gaps can only exist when outcomes are at stake. A process can be added to and improved endlessly, which means that gaps are both expected and inevitable. Now that you understand education, let's talk about the basics of what to teach your kids when and whether you know they're learning what you're teaching so you can quit worrying about gaps. So let's start by going back to the levels. The knowledge level for me is like 5th grade and under. This is a stage where kids have lots of curiosity. They want to know stuff. This is when they question everything and they have that amazing ability to memorize things, like all those silly jokes that your 10-year-old rolls out on you. Yeah. This is the time to stuff those little minds with all sorts of facts and information. Even if they only remember half of it, yeah, they still have plenty in storage to keep that gap trap at bay. So at this point, you're going to teach the basics, like how to add, subtract, multiply, and divide, how to read and spell. How about all those random history dates? Maybe a foreign language? Definitely all the cool stuff out there in the natural world. Yeah, the stuff, that we go outside to see. Yes. This is also a great time to read those timeless children's classics, the ones we carry with us in our hearts. Yeah. Not a lot of gapping going on here because you're putting your child's natural curiosity to use. A kid at this level usually wants to know so badly, you're hard-pressed to do anything but fill the gaps. So that's what to teach, but how do you know the kiddos are getting it? How do you know they're retaining the important stuff? Well, that's easy. Just ask your child to tell you what he's learning. Now, I don't mean ask him at the end of the day. I mean ask him as you're presenting it. Things like, so what did Babar just do? Or maybe, how about this one? Now you can teach me how to add 5 plus 6. So now, because you know that he knows, yeah, you can kick that gap trap right on out the door. The next level is understanding, which I consider to be 6th to 8th grade roughly. In this one, you're more of a guide than a teacher because your child is ready for more independent work, right? And this is where the gap trap usually begins for most homeschoolers. We think that we have to fall back on that outcome-based testing because we're not working right alongside our little angel, and that pushes us right over the gap cliff. But let's back up here and start with what to teach at this level before we dive into whether or not they know it. So this is a stage where kids begin to connect the dots with the basics they learned back in the knowledge level, right? So this is the time pretty much to ramp up the complexity within a reasonable boundary, but ramp it up. This is the time to teach critical thinking skills, to use history timelines, to connect events. How about some debate, some oral debate, science fair projects? Yeah, these are all great subjects at this point because they all take what your child knows thus far to the next shelf. And actually, if you think about it, these are also all subjects that have discussion built into them, which makes assessing progress super easy. By talking with your child about the work that he's doing, you'll know if he's just like shooting from the hip or if he really gets it. And because the main event here is connection, your child doesn't have to know everything, just how stuff intertwines, right? So there you go. Understanding level in a nutshell. No gap worries here. So now we've finally arrived at the wisdom level, which is 9th to 12th grade, the high school years. This is where the rubber meets the road, and your child is ready to put what they know into concrete application. A major influencer in what you teach at this stage would be your child's personal interests and gifting. And by the way, I did a couple of in-depth videos a while back on high school teaching, which I will link. I think it's going to be up here, right? But I'll try to give you the 3,000-foot view for now as it pertains to the whole gap thing, okay? So basically, this is the time for formal, complex instruction. Think composition, traditional logic, lab science, algebra, even social studies like economics and government. But this is also a great place to insert some interest-led subjects. Yeah, get together with your child to brainstorm a class or two, or even more in the later years of this level, based on some things that he's really interested in. Help him think outside the education box and inside the world of his own talents and interests. But I can hear some of you saying,
wait a minute, isn't this the time when we should be doubling down and filling all those gaps from the earlier levels? This is the last stop before adulthood and education has to be completed. This is no time for frilly classes. Yeah.
Think about the word I just used, completed. Oh, really? As in, your child has to be done learning about everything so they can launch as successful adults? No. This is the time for your child to figure out how to apply what they know. Because let's face it, that's what being an adult is all about. In fact, I think this is the skill set that's missing for a lot of young people these days. Their educational shelf was way too small for the box labeled thinking, so it got left out. Yeah, I like this example. If you know all the dates of the major events in history, but you have no idea how those events influenced each other or how you could use the lessons learned by people who lived at that time, what exactly have you got? The winning answers on Jeopardy? Seriously, this is the level where your child learns to value knowing how to learn because he figures out that learning how to do is to get things done. And now, since he knows that he can learn anything, he is both confident and gap-proof. Talk about winning the whole enchilada. So now, I hope that you and your homeschool are out of the outcome-based gap trap. Woohoo, I did it. I said gap trap again. You know what? I have said that through this whole video and I haven't messed it up once. Hey, you try saying gap trap fast 3 times. Yeah. Anyway, there is only one gap that really matters, And that's the one that stands guard between thinking and regurgitating. Hey, teach your kids to rely on the open-ended process of learning when they hit those bumps in the journey that we call life. Instead of just holding on for dear life because they got gaps in their outcome seatbelts. As our great Jedi Master Yoda says, do or do not. There is no try. Which I translate to mean there are no gaps because there is no endpoint to learning. And that's a wrap for today. As always, thank you so much for joining me and watching this video. And speaking of gaps, be sure to subscribe to my channel, Homeschool University, so you don't miss a single one of the new videos that I publish every other Wednesday. And hey, if you found this video helpful, please hit the thumbs up button and give me a little encouragement. And also leave me a comment, especially if you have a tip to share or an idea for a future video. And do not forget to share this video because homeschooling is way more fun with friends. So remember, here at Homeschool U, we have 3 key values: be practical, be purposeful, and be positive. I believe in you, homeschool mom, and you should believe in yourself because you are amazing.
Hey now, take a step outside and seize the day.